That kind of ties into another thing I noticed, and you have to imagine I watched that footage multiple times. The game doesn't seem procedurally generated anymore. Is that
You're right?
Is that true? So it's true, but
It is true.
why was chosen for that specific step?
Yeah. Okay. Very good. So yeah, it's not procedurally generated anymore. And I'm very pleased that I managed to say that without... I think that's actually a phrase that's very hard to say. Procedurally generated. So,
hey, we're both not English born. It's okay.
Exactly. So Dig 1 was procedurally generated, meaning that the worlds are put together using code. So they're sort of randomized within parameters.
Yeah.
But whereas SteamWorld Dig 2 is 100% handcrafted, meaning that every block that is in the world has been put there by a level designer at Image and Form.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why we are doing this is that now it's consistent. We don't need to spend time searching for, let's say, bugs that would make the game impossible to finish, for example. Right. Because theoretically, that could actually happen in SteamWorld Dig, that you could dig down and then that you get to an area that you can't penetrate, that there are just like solid blocks that you can't get through.
Wow.
We took steps when making SteamWorld Dig to make sure that shouldn't happen, but in the worst case scenario, like a 1 in a million times that could happen, or you could find yourself in a pit that you couldn't dig yourself out of.
Has ever contacted you about that specifically?
I think so, yeah. Actually, like someone has at some point, it's like, well, I dug out this floor and fell into a pit, and now I can't get up. What am I supposed to do? And we're like, okay, I see, you're there. Okay. So that wasn't supposed to happen, but I mean, if you're using randomization, what do they say? Like if you take enough monkeys and give all of them a typewriter, then one of them is going to write statistically, one of them is going to write all of Shakespeare's works, right? Like an infinite number of monkeys, right? So, yeah, obviously, like something is going to happen if you rely on randomization,
right?
But with SteamWorld Dig 2, we have two very, very good level designers working full time,
right? And
they've been able to come up with some marvelous puzzles and stuff throughout the game. I enjoy it very much. It's a lot of fun to sort of just play the game and to know that they have actually they've placed every block. I mean, I don't dare guess how many blocks, how many tiles there are in the game, but there are like hundreds of thousands, right? And they have placed each and every one of those. And there's a lot of thought that has gone into what is where and so on.
Are there any mechanical touches that make the experience fresh or new and stand on its own?
Yeah, I think so. There are a lot of new tools and so on that that's one of those questions I shouldn't get like too too convoluted about. I would just say yes, because there are so many new interesting things. Like SteamWorld Dig I think it's a great game, but if you look at it, it's like a vertical shaft that you dig down, it's roughly the same in width the whole way through, and at the end you run into an end boss, and that's it. That's the game, right? That's SteamWorld Dig. SteamWorld Dig 2 has just so many things that, if I start talking about one of them, then that sort of becomes more prominent than the others. I would just say that yes, there are so many interesting new mechanisms in the game that were not in SteamWorld Dig.
Fair enough. I mean, it's a short answer for once. I take it.
Yeah, you should be grateful for that.
Sure. Story-wise, there's now Dorothy, who was also in the first game, I think. And I reckon it's a new story. What is it about the world in SteamWorld Dig 2 that's different from the first?
Well, without giving anything away, is
don't say too much.
No, good. I was going to say that it's a different story altogether, and it's yes, because there are some interesting twists to it. Right. I think in SteamWorld Dig, it was here comes this lone Steambot to a town in trouble, and he sort of, without talking too much, like he just gets on with the task and starts uncovering what is wrong, right? And then he saves the town, but like sort of in a Jesus kind of way, he sacrifices himself at the end, right, for the good of the town or the good of the people. This time it's a little bit more personal. It's a personal perspective on things. It's Dorothy's perspective, and it also has to sort of tie in with SteamWorld Heist as well, because it was convenient to make SteamWorld Dig and then make SteamWorld Heist because they were not connected. It's like, here's SteamWorld Dig, it's nice. Here's SteamWorld Heist, it's nice. Here's the game in between. How is it possible? How is it possibly going to connect these two games? Because that's what we're aiming at. We want the SteamWorld lore to be contiguous. That you have like a sort of a story that arcs in the background. Like this is way back when, and this is sort of in the future.
Like my first thought in my head, and you don't have to expand on it, this was, oh god, so it's going to end up with exploding the world in the very end of SteamWorld Dig 2.
Now nobody's talking about that, right? I mean,
hey, that's how high started.
Well, it's like, well, I'll let you draw your own conclusions about that, right? But yeah, it's good to put it that way. That Dig 2 is the sequel of Dig, but SteamWorld is somewhere. It sort of has to start connecting with SteamWorld Heist as well. Sure. And I think it can do that in a number of ways. Of
course, yeah.
And I think Dig 2 does. So yeah, it's
cool.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. I love the art direction for the new game. Well, it already had a lot of good details in the first one, as I would expect. But what is the process of making these games look so grand?
Oof, it's it's thousands and thousands of man hours, really, because it's like I said before, we make something and then we throw it away, and then we make something else and throw it away, and even the stuff that we keep, we throw away. If you understand what I mean, we make something and then we reiterate on the same thing, and then again, and then again, and again. It's like Dorothy, the character. She's been made 20 times or something like that.
Wow. Okay.
And I mean, she's been drawn and she's been functioning, and then she's been drawn and she's been functioning, and drawn and functioning. like sort of a new iteration on top of the old one and so on. And
right.
So it very much comes down to what the art director, Tobias Nilsson, he's a world-class art director, I should say. Tobias Nilsson, he is a brilliant guy who somehow manages to get all the other graphic artists on board on what he wants to do with every new game. Because like you had SteamWorld Dig with a specific art style, and then you had SteamWorld Heist that was similar, but if you look at the characters, they're not at all the same. It's like, and then you go to SteamWorld Dig 2, which does not look like SteamWorld Dig or SteamWorld Heist. Yes, it looks a lot more like SteamWorld Dig than SteamWorld Heist, but at the same time, it's evolved, right? So it's not that. Well, I think everyone has gotten better at drawing, but that's not the big thing. The thing is they want to make sure that Dig looks like its own game, or Dig 2 looks like its own game, I should say. So it's really fascinating to see how that evolves. But yeah, I very much like how the characters look the in-game characters look in SteamWorld Dig, the first one, because they're so simple. There's so little space to make them personal, if you understand what I mean.
Right.
Like especially for the 3DS where it came out first, there are so few pixels to sort of hammer out the personal characteristics for each character, and I think Tobias did such a wonderful job with that. Then with SteamWorld Heist, all the characters were more elaborate, but there were also more characters, so there was more to love. So I really loved how it was progressing. And then with SteamWorld Dig 2, again, it's very different. Right. You'll notice that in both SteamWorld Dig and SteamWorld Heist, all the characters have like dark outlines or dark like a border around them. They don't have that necessarily in SteamWorld Dig 2. So it's sort of like it sounds like a very small thing, but like graphically it means something. It looks quite different. And thank you for bringing it up. It's like our artists, they get a lot of credit, but yeah, not enough, I think. I think they're great.
I think it's important too. The previous two SteamWorld games, I played them a lot again because they were constantly souped up every time I played them. SteamWorld Dig 2, because it's no longer procedurally generated, is more locked down in that sense. So how do you perceive length in a game like that?
It's a really interesting question. I guess we'll have the answer once the game is finalized. Right now, an example is probably best. I mean, when SteamWorld Dig was done, I played it through once, not for testing purposes, but just for my own pleasure.
Right.
So at home, I was playing with headphones under my bed cover. So I had only like this the 3DS screen, right, and the sound in my ears, and I was just carried away by that game because it was. I just enjoyed it so much that I wasn't thinking about what was happening in the rest of the world. Now that I'm playtesting SteamWorld Dig 2, it has certain moments that sort of brings you back to reality, if you understand what I'm. But it has very, very long sequences where I just lose track of everything. And if someone disturbs me, then like I have so many kids, right? So I'm bound to be disturbed by one kid one time or another. But when they do, it's like, excuse me, where did that come from, right? I have to look up and look around and then ask again what they were talking about. I'm just totally lost in it. So it's very hard. Length is very hard to talk about. It's like the game does never feel tedious. It just feels I feel so immersed when I play it. when I look up and notice that a few hours have gone, and it's a problem because I have to get up in the morning, but it's like 3 or 4 a.m. and I don't want to stop. And I know that my legs are going to ache in the morning from lack of sleep and stuff. And still, I don't want to give it up, right? So it's a very tasty prospect. I should put it that way. I'm not. I think I can be confident in saying that if you want to immerse yourself in a game, then SteamWorld Dig 2 is there. You're not going to be thinking about the milk that you have to buy, like for next week or something, while you're playing that game. You're going to be thinking about the game.
Right. With the first 2 games, you kept the promise of Nintendo 3DS first. Is Nintendo Switch your focus now, or will the route be different going forward?
It's a very simple. I can give a very simple answer to it, but also the longer one. I mean, it's with the previous ones, SteamWorld Dig, we released on the 3DS because that's the platform where we actually had released another game. We had released SteamWorld Tower Defense on Nintendo DSi, and we had an email address at Nintendo, so we went for the 3DS first. And then with Heist, we went to 3DS first because we had promised people that it was going to come to 3DS first. With SteamWorld Dig 2, it's going to debut on Nintendo Switch, and because Nintendo Switch just ticks all the boxes, I think it's SteamWorld Dig 2 is a wonderful handheld game, and it's new hardware, so it's been very exciting to work with Nintendo Switch. But this time, so the longer answer is that it's not like we have a deal with Nintendo.
Oh, no.
Right. So we are free to do whatever we want with SteamWorld Dig 2. But it's going to debut on Nintendo Switch. But okay. I think we're going to... we are only talking about Nintendo Switch so far. We'll talk about other platforms as soon as we feel ready to talk about them, I guess.
Right.
But with all that said, I should say that these days we're much better at porting our games than we've been. Yeah.
Some experience always helps.
Yeah, it does. I mean, that was voodoo, like for a long time. Now we know how to do it.
Yeah, once you have a structure in place, it becomes also easier to do it. So
yeah, and people, it's like you have people that can do it. It always helps.
For sure. How has Nintendo been entire route towards Nintendo Switch? Were they able to provide you with support?
Yeah, but the thing is that we received a dev kit very early, and so we had a build for a Nintendo Switch very early. And right. The thing is that we had set aside something like a whole sprint to get it up and running. That was one sort of subtask of 1 2-week sprint, like start one Monday and not the coming Friday, but the Friday after that, we must have a build up and running on Nintendo Switch.
That's fast.
Yeah, but the thing is, Dan, that it was up and running 2 days later. I mean, in 2 days instead of 2 weeks.
Okay.
It was a little bit disconcerting because we thought that we must be doing something not wrong, but we are probably missing something very important here, because why is it up and running now? What is really wrong with this? And it turned out that it's just that much simpler to develop for Nintendo Switch. Huh. It's, for us at least, we use our own C++ engine. We don't use Unity or Unreal. So I'm not sure how it is for those guys, but for us it was remarkably simple. And that means, so to answer your question, it means that we haven't really needed very much technical support from Nintendo. We sent them the build and said, is is this right? Are we doing it right? And they came back to us and said, yeah, it looks fine. So they've been very, very helpful.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any specific features of the platform that you're targeting with the Switch version?
Yeah, we are going to have HD Rumble in there because we think we can have some nice stuff for HD Rumble.
Nice stuff for HD Rumble. Okay. I see how it is. Nintendo's approach to Nintendo Switch feels very different. Like Western developers are waiting a little bit longer, and Japanese and smaller companies are taking center stage. How do you feel regards to the system's fortunes?
I think. Well, first, I think Nintendo Switch is going to do great. It's the launch itself is speaking volumes of that, but
right.
But I think they've just they've been able to check so many boxes. Like just initially when they came out and said it's going to be both handheld and a console, everybody thought it was great. People were not as convinced that they were going to pull it off as well as they've done. When you see how well it works, or how simple it is to operate, like how simple it is to just take it with you, right? Or to put it in the cradle and have it up and running on the TV. You sit there and it's like, this is exactly how it's supposed to work. Why is this the first console? Why did it have to take until 2017 to have a system working perfectly like this? So that's one. And then you have, obviously, Breath of the Wild, the Legend of Zelda game that came out, which is... What? Is there anyone who has had anything negative to say about that game, really?
I mean, not necessarily, no.
No, I mean, it doesn't... The negative things people are saying about that game, they are saying those just so they have something negative to say about the game, I think. It's really hit, Nintendo has hit all the right notes with that game. Mm-hmm. So they had that's one of the things that I thought was a big concern before they launched, that it felt like they didn't have very many titles in the beginning. But then they come out with one of the very, very, very best Zelda games of all time. And which means that if you have that, people don't mind having a very expensive Zelda playing machine at home for a short while.
To be fair, it also helps to have a good amount of smaller games, and they were definitely there.
Yeah.
I think Fast RMX and having Shovel Knight there was amazing.
Yep. I think also, like our friends at Shinen I think they've just made a killing with Fast RMX. It's like you say, it's like a very good third-party titles really helps. I think also I'm glad that there aren't that many huge third-party titles lined up for it yet either. I think it means that the launch or the launch window has sort of been on Nintendo's terms. Like they haven't been dependent on like super big publishers like EA or Ubisoft or Bethesda or what have you to make it a success. They've actually been able to pull that off themselves. Like I think everyone agrees that the Switch is a success so far, and that it's going to be successful.
We'll have to see how it continues in the next financial year.
I guess, I guess.
I mean, if their estimates is correct, it's by the next year it should be close already to what the Wii U in total sold. So,
right, and then
that's sort of insane, actually.
Yep, it is insane, but actually, what is insane is how well Nintendo has done it. I should say it would be it's very easy. It would have been very easy to imagine that Nintendo would have failed. You know, that the Switch was that it would have been a good idea, and that it was just that they had too short time to develop it after the Wii U and so on. I'm really surprised. I have to say that I'm surprised at what a fantastic job they've done with it. Mm-hmm. Not only with the hardware, but yeah, that right there is praise enough. That the hardware is fantastic. I think
I'll say it's going back a little bit to Faster MX. Is it telling that is the game I showcased to the first two people? Because Zelda is a great game and all. Don't get me wrong. But that game is a technical marvel to show on that handheld screen.
Right. And also, it's a great game to showcase in any case, because it sort of it taxes the system. I think it's very graphics heavy and so on, and it's just so fluid and everything. So it's the hardware is great, but I think also like Nintendo on the marketing side of things have done a very good thing.
Oh, for sure,
with the Switch. So yeah, we're very excited to see what happens.
Absolutely. Like this is the before last question, and the following might come off as port begging, and I do apologize for that. The question is though, I would like to play Heist on that handheld screen. You know?
Well, so would I. See, that's one of the things that we'll just need to look into, I guess.
Yeah.
It's if between you and me, I'd like to play all the games we ever made on the Switch.
That's good. That's a positive sign, to be honest.
Oh yeah. It's like I just really want to see what we can do with it, because I mean, Heist for one, it's made for it. It would be so tasty.
Yeah, I've the funny part is I have thought of so many titles that. So here's the thing: I play a lot of games, and I was playing like a really lengthy RPG on my PlayStation 4. Many people can figure out which one it is. Of course, it's not hard. But I was playing it. I was thinking why wouldn't it be amazing if I could just take this with me? And I have this with almost every single game I'm playing it now. I want to play it at home. I will gladly do that, but I'm like, there's a handheld screen next to me here.
It's I agree with you, and I wonder how major publishers are now, if they are revamping their publishing schemes and so on, because if the Switch takes off like it looks like it's taking off,
right,
it becomes a very viable platform. Like the Switch is going to be in so many hands. Can you really afford to disregard it completely?
Right.
Like to say that now, okay, yeah, that's fine, but we're not going to do it. That doesn't really cut it. It's like anyone can just look at the numbers and say, yeah, but if we make it, then we have this and this and this. So I think, like I said just before, that Nintendo has been able to shape their launch themselves. But I think there are so many big third-party publishers lined up at the door now to bring their games to the Switch.
Right.
And so maybe not this year, but next year, like the answer to your question is, yeah, now I can have all these big RPG games, or I can bring all my favorite games to the Switch and play it on the go.
Yeah, I have an entire list from smaller and bigger games that I would love to have on the Switch, and I think it becomes longer every single day that we talk more about the Switch.
But think about like EA and their sports games, right? How far off is that? I mean,
FIFA is coming, so
yeah. But what FIFA is? I mean, isn't that the question, right?
Yeah, that's true.
is it something that EA decided? Okay, let's give them a subset of FIFA or something like that on the Switch. And if that was what they were thinking, then I think they have cause to sort of revise that thinking now, because imagine being able to sit on the bus and play like a game, or like just do everything that you can do on the console version. I mean, everything in terms of buying and selling players, all that. You want it. You want to be able to do that.
Even this month, I know that Minecraft is not the biggest thing, the hottest property in the world right now, but it's like, I'm excited to play Minecraft everywhere on that handheld screen, because the only other option specifically for that is the Pocket Edition on mobile, which doesn't have everything, right, or the PlayStation Vita version, which stopped updating.
Yeah. So if that comes out and it's fully featured, it's just so open. I would say that, or let's put it this way, like, a couple of years ago, you and me, we were sort of musing about what the NX was going to be, right?
Yeah.
I had no idea at the time. And when I found out what it was, I couldn't tell you that I knew what it was. But like before that, when you and me were speculating what it was, you said that I think, or I hope, that it's going to be a mix between a console and a handheld.
Yeah.
And I said, well, okay, yeah, that if they can pull that off, then that would be magic. But then then I was thinking, I said, yeah, but who's going to now iOS devices are so good, and like, how is it going to be too little, too late to compete with that, to get like to make a handheld thing that's going to compete with your iPad or your iPhone? I don't think so anymore, because it is your total system suddenly. Like, you have, why should you do like partial playing on your iOS and then play another game on your PS4 or your Xbox One if you can get like the same? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like, you can unify it now in one thing. And I really did not think I would think that way, like around this time. Yeah. So
right.
I am very, very impressed with it.
We're about to wrap it up. Is there anything that we haven't discussed before, or something that you still want to like say?
I always talk too much, so maybe we should just round it off. But I think it is really cool that you and me can sit here now. We're almost 4 years later now, like, compared to Dig 1, right?
Yeah.
And we still look the same. We're both just as young as we used to be, and nothing has happened. and we can still be so excited about things. I mean, you and me, we can sit and talk for hours and forget to hit the record button, and then realize that we have to record something.
Right.
So it's never going to get old. Like,
no.
That's one of the things that I might have been worried about, that, making games is going to wear off at some point. But there is no industry like the gaming industry, because it changes so quickly. And the latest, greatest is it's around for such a short time, and we get to live through like milestones in history, in gaming history. I mean, Breath of the Wild comes out. Do you remember what year? I mean, Ocarina of Time came out. Do you remember what year that was? Roughly. I mean, like.
Wow. I don't know from the top of my head.
No, okay. But what I mean is that suddenly we're like in a historical moment. A game is released that gets 98, 99 out of 100 from everywhere. Like, we're living through it. We're playing that game as it comes out.
Right.
Like, kids are going to talk about that game later on, right? It's like, oh yeah, Grandpa, tell us again how it was when blah, blah, blah. It's like, it is cool. It is really cool. So yeah, that's probably what I'm going to finish with. It's a very cool time to be alive, and it's a very cool time to be in the gaming industry, I think.
I agree. Well, that's about it, I guess.
Let's let's wrap it up now before we start crying.
You can follow me on Twitter, which is @Nintendaan, that's NANTENDAAN. You can follow Image Inform at ImageForm for updates on their SteamWorld games, because they're really good. You should probably play them. I mean, if you haven't, you probably should. I mean, you have probably a device that can play them. If not, why are you listening to this podcast, please?
Yeah, well, try them out. It's like, I think, so Julius, our community manager, he came up with a slogan for Image Inform. It's like, we make the best games you have yet to play. That probably sums up our success.
Aww.
All right. Thank you so much, Dan. It's been lovely.
All the same. Thank you so much.